So welcome everyone to today's webinar, Women in Football's latest webinar. We're really grateful to all of our members for your support, and the feedback we're receiving from you regarding our webinars is positive and really encouraging. We're glad you're enjoying the series, and please do feedback to us. We set these webinars up in response to the COVID-19 crisis, and we hope that as things open up, you'll continue to find these inspiring and informative until we can all be together again in the same room. We'll be carrying on with our series for the foreseeable future. Let us know on our email, events@womeninfootball.co.uk, if you'd like to see a webinar on any topic in particular. So on to today's session. I'm delighted to welcome our host. Jessica Creighton is an award-winning broadcaster and journalist who has worked in the industry for more than 10 years for world-renowned organisations like the BBC, Radio 5 Live, BT Sport and Talk Sport. Currently, you can find Jess presenting for Sky Sports News and hosting the Women's Football Show. As a former player, Jess is committed to levelling the playing field and ensuring sport is accessible for all, particularly those from marginalised communities. She's the co-founder of Rainbow Noir, a community group that elevates the voices of LGBTQ people of colour. Her YouTube chat show, B is for Black, provides a unique insight into the lives and experiences of Black and mixed-race women in sport. We are delighted that Jess has agreed to run today's B is for Black session with us at Women in Football. And I'm delighted to hand over to you, Jess.
That's a lovely welcome. Thank you very much, Laura. Welcome everyone watching. This is...
She's running a little bit late, but she will be joining us soon.
Yes, Hope Powell is on her way, we are told. Fingers crossed. Yeah, thank you, Laura. This is the first time B is for Black has gone on the road, as it were, my first collaboration, which I'm very excited about. And it's great to be doing it with women in football who have been at the forefront of trying to bring about change, much needed change in football over a number of years. So great to be here. And great to have you all with us. I hope you've got your snacks and you've got your cuppa. I've got mine ready. Let me introduce our amazing panelists. Here is Hope Powell. She has arrived. Hope Powell is first on the list. 66 caps, of course, led the England women's team for over 15 years and has been an integral part of revolutionising the women's game in England over the past 25 years. And she is currently manager of Brighton Women. Afternoon, Hope, you okay?
Apologies for being late. Connection issue. Okay. No, I'm lying. I was actually just late. I'm sorry. We've got a lot of apologies.
You will be fine. Mary Phillips is also on the panel, England women's first and only Black captain, 65 caps, 6 FA Cups, and now manager of Peckham Town men's team. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay? Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Great to have you with us. And Audrey Cooper is here as well, who is head of women's coach development at the FA. Good afternoon, Audrey.
Hi, Jess. Hi, everyone.
Hello, great to have you with us. First question then, let's get straight into it. I want to ask Hope and Mary first. Do you refer to yourselves as Black football coaches?
Over to you, Mary.
I refer to myself as a football coach. You know, I don't see colour. I wasn't brought up to look at people's colour. People to ask me how I see myself, like would want that ethnicity, then obviously I'm a Black football coach. But other than that, I'm just a football coach. I don't see why colour has to come into it.
Hope?
Yeah, they're the same. You know, what do I do as my profession? I'm a coach. I'm a football coach. But I identify myself as a Black female. So it has nothing to do with coaching, a Black coach. It's just my role is coaching.
I suppose I asked that question then is because we're all here today to acknowledge the fact that there are certain barriers that exist in football coaching for Black women. And I wonder whether you have felt those barriers. Have they prevented you from doing what you wanted to do in football coaching, Mary?
There has been barriers up there, but I've not allowed them to stop me from trying to achieve my goal and the love of being part of coaching and playing football. You know, and I've got many people around me that support women playing football and coaching that have given me the stepping stones to keep moving forward. And obviously that drive I have myself to want to achieve. you know, I've allowed myself to keep moving forward.
What about you, Hope?
I think there's been challenges, but I think those challenges have probably come more of being a female in the industry. I'm to be honest, I'm sure you know my experiences have been. There's been discrimination, I think, because I've as a female, equally as a black female. But again, as Mary said, I haven't let that deterred me or stop me trying to achieve and work hard in the industry to achieve. But I think that the discrimination certainly for me has been twofold as a black woman and as a well, as a black female. So it's twofold for me, really. I think it's been in some instances covert. It's not always open. And it's sometimes you think back, you know, you think back to some of the experiences that you've had, and then you realize that perhaps that you know, maybe there was some discrimination because of the color of your skin or indeed your gender.
Audrey, I'd like to bring you in here and find out if the FA itself acknowledges that there could be issues affecting black women in particular in the game in terms of coaching, because I know the FA has been quite forward thinking in terms of trying to bring more female coaches into the game. But what about where gender intersects with race?
Yeah, thanks, Jess. It's certainly, if I start with, there's kind of 4 key areas, if you like. There's kind of the gender, for sure, as Hope says, that can often be a bit of a barrier, and lots of that shows up in different ways. And then there's ethnicity and sexuality and disability. It's certainly those 4 areas, if you like. But if we talk specifically about black female coaches, I think there are reasons why some people come across those barriers. I think there's been quite a lot of talk around accepting females as coaches, and then accepting, you know, whether you're black, Asian, or a white female coach. And I think one of the pieces of work we're doing right now is to start to really understand those barriers. Because if you can understand those barriers, and they'll be different for different people, I think, Jess, I think that's the key thing. It's not going to be the same for everybody. But the more we understand what those barriers are, the more we can break them down. And the more we can put things in place so that those barriers, I don't know whether I can ever say don't ever exist, because there'll still be some people who will see, you know, the color of your skin, they'll still see your gender. But I'd like to hope that over time we start talking about coaches. I mean, your question to both Hope and Mary in the beginning, do you see yourself as a black coach or a coach? And the answer was, I'm a coach. And I think that's what we want to change in society. At some point, we'll talk about the coaches, the amazing coaches we have, and we'll not talk about the color of their skin or whether they're a male or a female, but we've still got some ways to go on that.
Hope, when you look back at the fact that, is it in 1998, the FA approached you to become the manager of England women as a black woman, that seems quite radical, doesn't it?
At the time, I thought it was, and I did pose the question, actually. You know, is this a token gesture? Is it, you know, the fact that I'm a female, the fact that I'm a black female, does it tick appropriate boxes? And obviously I had to trust what they were saying. No, you know, I've been in the game a long time. My credentials were quite good. I was coaching, but I found that I had to ask the question. So at that time, to be appointed was a time when associations were appointing females. You know, France had done it. I think Switzerland had done it, and something that the FA picked up on. I was approached, and I was very skeptical. But then I decided clearly, look, this is an opportunity. I'm gonna run with it, and that's what I did.
How did you get into coaching, Mary, after being such a successful player?
I was actually coaching from when I left school. I joined Newell football community scheme, and I gained my coaching badges through them alongside doing a administration course. So I tried both of them together, and just obviously through playing and working through the community scheme, I gained my coaching badges.
Okay. So it's always been something that you've loved. It's always been something that you would consider doing after playing?
Oh yes, definitely. You know, I've done it from the age of 14 up, just messing about my friends. I'd always be the one who like dictating kind of thing and telling people how to play and how we wanted things to play. And obviously, when I got the opportunity to go and join Neil at the community sports league, I took that. I always wanted to be in the sports industry, and obviously that was down the road for me. And I was playing for Neil, so all kind of tied in. And then obviously finding out I can do my coaching badges while I'm there, you know, it was just a dream kind of come true that I can actually try being the coach or being the footballer and actually being within that footballing environment all the time.
And then how did it come about that you took charge of Peckham men's team? There aren't many, if any, female managers, coaches taking charge of senior men's team in this country. Were you shocked when the offer came about?
I've been at Peckham Town like early 2000. They started their youth team. You know, I helped build that youth team, so I've worked with all the age groups in there. And yes, I was coaching through, like I said, I was starting the under 14s that I'd been coached for the past few years, and I started coaching with the reserve team, and then I started doing my A license, and obviously I wanted to up the criteria and the players I was working with. So I was speaking to the chair at the club and the management at both reserve team and the first team. They said, yeah, you can come along and do the coaching with the teams on the Tuesday and Thursday. So by all means, I took that opportunity because obviously it was ideal for my A license to be able to be coaching with that calibre of players. And as it went down the line, the club obviously wanted more experienced people coming through, and some actually who've had what they needed. Like you need your licenses to go through, and the club wants to have an impact. They want to keep building. And their first team manager wanted to step down from his role there. So obviously they said, as long as being the coach there, would you like to manage the team for the 2019 season coming in? And obviously given that opportunity, that's my local club. I've been there, like I said, from 2000, and I've helped a lot of things in there. And I've got the ethos of the team, how they want to play. It's definitely how I like to be doing my football and what I want to be doing. So by all means, I took the opportunity, but I'm yet to complete the season. COVID's come in and it stopped it on 2 seasons. So hopefully this year I'm going to get to kickstart the season on the 14th of August, and I'll get to see it all the way through to May, as long as it don't get closed down.
Fingers crossed for you, Mary.
Yeah, hopefully.
My goodness, of all the times to come into senior men's football, that was probably not the best season for you. But when you decided to take the offer, were there any doubts in your mind about taking it because you thought, oh, I'm gonna have to deal with a whole load of abuse here?
No,
being a woman?
From the club itself, I've had no problems because they're very inclusive club, and they're very, like I said, I've been there for a long time, and there's a lot of women in the club, like who do our filming, who help with the other teams within the club, and we've got a women's team within the club, so there's a lot of women in and around our club. I've had, obviously, going to away games, I've had issues where people will just bypass me and go to the physio or the chair, and at the gates getting told, well, girlfriends need to go round to the side to go in, you can't come through. I'm just like, well, actually, I'm the manager. It's like, yeah, really, you've got to go round the side. And then they step up and say, no, that's the manager, you have to let her through. And they're like, okay, you can go through. Reluctantly go on, thinking I'm still not going to be the manager, I'm still just going to be sitting and watching. And then once the game actually starts and they see me on the pitch talking to the players, you know, like our media person caught me on film saying, she actually knows what she's doing, you know, she can actually understand this game. And it's just like the ignorance of some people that think that women don't understand football. But it was nice because we went round and the game swung around and we ended up playing really nice football and winning the game. So little things like that, it's a little icing on the cake, it's a little sweetener when the game's finished.
Nice. Well done to you. I suppose, Hope, hearing that, there's no surprises in that there are some ignorant people out there.
Oh, definitely. And Mary's experienced it firsthand. I experienced it as a young player growing up through, you know, girls playing football, you know, but the nice thing is that the females are breaking barriers in the game. I think Mary's a fantastic example of what can be achieved. And there are more and more females in the game coaching at the highest level, coaching at all levels of the game. So we continue to break these barriers. And put, you know, females in the game at the forefront, which is fantastic. It has shifted, but there is still a lot of ignorance around, you know, should females be even anywhere near a football pitch? You know, there is still that. But I think, you know, people like Mary have done fantastically well to prove that women are more than capable. It isn't about coaching the gender, it is just about coaching, and that's what Mary's good at with Peckham Town. So, you know, we can only applaud that, I think.
Clearly. And Mary, you are the first female manager in the UK to lead a senior men's team to a trophy at any level. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, I heard that. Like, we have a little group, they call themselves the Minnesota Ultras, and like they were really proud that moment when we won the cup. And I said, you were the first thing. And I was like, I kind of find out hard with me. You guys even need to look into some history and make sure that you're right, because I don't know how correct you are. I'm sure there's other women coaches out there that have done this. And they literally went back and looked, and it hasn't come up that any other woman has done it. So I'm very proud to claim that. You know, it is amazing. Something the club had been wanting to do for years, and obviously I've managed to do that within my first season of coming in, and actually winning that trophy was amazing. You know, unfortunately we went out on penalties the other day, and so we haven't gone through for the next round. But you know, it's how it goes. You know, when you go to penalties, it's a lottery, and our numbers weren't with us, and so it's now looking for next season now and going through the cup again, and hopefully moving on through that and seeing where we go. But you know, it's a great achievement to actually be able to have under my name again.
Yeah, honestly, you've mentioned the new season so many times. You sound like you're ready to start it now, Mary.
I've just got over like losing that cup game, so I'm already planning for the new season. I know what I need to be getting in. You know, the players are obviously still distraught from it, but for me, let's hope we'll know the season doesn't actually stop. You know, as soon as it stops, you've got to look forward to what do I now need for next season? What players do I need to be putting in? You know, who's coming in, who's going out? Am I still getting the same like coaching staff in with me? Like we want promotion this year, so we may have to look for a ground share because we don't have floodlights, which stops us from moving up. You know, we're level 7, but to move up to level 6, you need floodlighting, and we've got to try. Although we've got permission for floodlighting at our venue, you know, we've got to talk to the owners of the ground to make sure we actually can get them put in, because obviously we've got things with the neighbours who are next door, and how would it affect them? But there's a lot of background work that needs to be done. But in the meantime, we still need to actually do the job on the pitch. So we need to find a venue that we can possibly ground share while we get our ground up to standard. So all that is going through, which will have a big reign on next season for me, while everything else goes on.
Wow, so much to think about. And speaking of signing new players, Hope, you're probably at that same point now. We might be getting a few exclusives from you later, maybe on player signings. Maybe.
Yes, to be honest. But, no, as Mary said, it doesn't actually stop. We played our last game, cup game yesterday, but we obviously finished the league last weekend. But once we knew that we were firmly going to stay in WSL, we started planning. And the planning is a continuous cycle. You know, you're always trying to look one step ahead, be in front of the opposition with signings. It's a challenge. So the on the pitch bit is actually the easy bit. It's off the pitch, and you're trying to plan and prepare, and it is absolutely relentless. But it's good fun. It's relentless but good fun. Hard work but good fun. And I think that's part of the reason why we do it, and that's part of the reason why we love it.
So you mentioned the WSL there, and I wonder, Hope, as the only female coach who happens to be black in the top 2 tiers of the women's game, why is that? Is that just the way things are, or can we look at this another way and wonder if there are barriers that exist that prevent certain people from getting opportunities?
Do you know what, Jessica? I don't have the answer to that. Why is it? I honestly cannot tell you. There are enough qualified, Mary being one of them, Rachel Yankee being another one, Corinne Brown being, there are enough black females that are qualified. You know, Mary's got a lot of experience. Maybe hers is about choice. She may well prefer where she is. But why am I the only black female? I don't know whether in 1998 I was lucky, right place, right time. I'd like to think that I had some of the skill set, maybe not at that age, but maybe I have that skill set now, definitely, to progress in the game. But I think there's a danger, isn't there, that there seems to be fewer and fewer black players coming through all the levels in England. You know, the youth teams, dwindling numbers of black players, the senior national team, you know, two that I think, Demi Stokes and Nikita. So generally that then translates, those players then some of them will want to coach. So I think the future is could be quite bleak, you know, unless that changes on the pitch, playing and transitioning into coaching and manage it at the highest level. I think there are a number of black coaches that coach at the lower level of the women's game or the lower level of the boys' game, or Mary's probably the only one that's senior male team. I don't honestly know whether that is that opportunity, is it discrimination, is it, I don't know. Mary was given an opportunity and ran with it. I was given an opportunity and ran with it. Sometimes I wonder if and it's the same in the men's game. There are a lot of qualified ex-male players that cannot get into the game. I look at it and go, wow, is that telling you something? Especially in the men's game, the numbers of black players that do not transition into coaching, into the game and administration is vast. The numbers are very high.
Yeah.
Fewer numbers in women's game. So if you're comparing it, our opportunities are far less, basically.
Yeah. And I think what you mentioned there in the men's game, it gets a lot more press that there are so few black players that transition into coaches, whereas the women's game still, you know, goes under the radar a little bit until people like myself start shouting about it and won't shut up about it.
You know, and we, you know, as black coaches that are in the game, we I guess we have a responsibility to try and promote, to try and help the next generation of black females coming through where we can. I feel a responsibility, and I'm trying to do that.
Brilliant. Okay, 2 points I want to pick up on there then, Hope, is that, do you think then we've gone backwards from a time when, you know, in 1998, you were approached by the FA as a black female to become head of the national team, to now, where you're still the only black female coach in an elite position in the women's game? Have we gone backwards?
Have we gone back? I don't think the game itself has gone backwards. The opportunity, I'll tell you what I think's happened. Yes, when I was a player and when Mary was a player, there were more black female players. Mary, yes. I don't know if you agree with that. I think you'd agree with me there. Yeah. I think what's happened, generally you transition, don't you, from being a player into a coach, or you stay in the game. If you love for the game, you want to stay in it. I think what's happening now with the development of the game in this country, and trying to raise standards, so the next generations of players coming through, we want them to train in a really nice environment. We want them to have the best. With the best intentions, it's excluded a large group of players, in my opinion. So, for example, the old academies that are now the RTC, they're placed in leafy suburbia where you need a 4x4 car to get to. And you know, people from low income cannot get these far-reaching places. So where probably I grew up as a player, and I trained locally and I was spotted locally, Mary trained locally, spotted locally, that local inner city talent where majority of black people live in a city, low income, you know, my mum was low income. And I think that still applies today. They can't get there. Can't get to Brighton Centre of Excellence, that, by the way, is at Lance in the men's training ground. You need a car. You need parents that can take you there. And I think that's a real challenge for a lot of young girls. And I think they're being missed. I go You know, I grew up in Peckham. I know Peckham. You go to Peckham Rye Park, Mary, you see a lot of talented young girls playing football that I look at and go, better than the England under-19 girl that's playing, but they're not being picked up. So there's something fundamentally wrong. So then those girls are not in the game. They don't transition out of the game then to become the next generation of coaches. That's the problem, I think. That's my opinion. But
Actually, on that, I was just going to add, if that's all right. Yeah, I think, there's, Mary's story in terms of how she got into coaching, how she started playing football, and then Hope saying the same. There's definitely a piece of work that's, it started, and you're right, Hope, how do we get into those communities? And I know some colleagues of mine are working on initiative, working with the EFL and getting back into those communities to do two things. One, to unearth more players, more Black and Asian players from minority backgrounds. So I think there's maybe been some time lost, if you like, but I think now is the time to get back into those communities, identify the players, identify the coaches, because I think there's coaching talent there as well. And I know my colleague Steve Smithies, who leads on diversity inclusion at the FA, his team of people are creating what they're calling community champions to actually do exactly as Hope said, get back into those communities. But we need to have an offer for girls in those communities. I think maybe with the growth of the game and the way it's evolved, we've kind of missed that opportunity, but recognized that there is talent exists. We've got to go and search in the right places, both for players and for coaches. So I think that's an important piece of work that's got to be done.
I think, I know there's been some pilots that have happened, and I firmly believe that you take the football to the people, not the people to the football, because you don't reach them. I think one of the challenges as well, there's been so many initiatives, and if initiatives don't equate to opportunity then becomes the initiative becomes null and void. And that's been a problem. Why am I going part of this initiative? Another initiative. At the end of the day, it is all about opportunity. If there are no opportunities, why are you going to bother? And that's the message that goes round. Well, I did that initiative, I did that for a year, and it led to, why am I going to bother? And then that message, football is a very small community. People talk, I went on that 2 years ago and I'm not where I want to be. So it's a real challenge in terms of creating opportunities. But I think as the game grows and the more exposure, there seems to be more women working in football than ever before, which is great. So hopefully down the line, there will be more Black women working in football than ever before, because the numbers are there's a disparity in numbers, isn't there? Definitely. And I'm hoping that, that's something that will change in the future. The immediate future.
Yeah, sure, Mary.
Just kind of what Hope said, I hope you don't mind me saying, but obviously at Peckham Town, we've just restarted our women's team. And obviously having spoken with Hope prior, she's been happy for us to try and forge a link with Brighton, so that we're now gonna, it's only up and starting, it's slowly going, but we will hope to forge that link. So all them young players that Hope has seen at Peckham, because that's where our women actually start training, and they'll come through, and those who are the diamonds in the rough will hopefully come through in time to come, and we'll get an opportunity to, instead of being just stuck in Peckham with no outlet, there'll be an outlet to actually have a link to a pro club at Brighton at some point in the future. So there will be a link there that it's not going to be no Hope and just going to be at Peckham Town, it's grassroots, there's no outlet. They're going to have that link to say it's a bigger picture. If you shine here, you've got them opportunities that doors can open for you at higher levels, that you will be seeing, doors aren't going to be shut on you, and you will have opportunities to move out if you have the quality to do that. And that is something we're working on, and hopefully within the next couple of seasons we'll be able to get something lined out and have that nice link between Peckham and Brighton, and maybe other clubs there will actually link onto it as well, give those inner city women and young girls the opportunity that myself and Hope had when we were younger, and being able to go through the same chances to be recognised and become the next ones out there.
Wow, that's amazing. That's such a good idea. And that's obviously been done without a governing body getting involved. That's just, the fact that you two have that relationship and that connection. But
I think
I do, sorry.
So and I think it's we've both grown up in the city, so we both know what it's taken to get to where we are. I mean, Hope's well and truly above me. She's at international. She's England coach, so she knows what it takes to be up there and stay out there. But also, she knows the groundwork and how hard it can be as a young girl trying to move forward and the barriers you have up there. Now, if you don't see it, so you can't really believe it. But just having people like Hope to look at, people like myself to look at, and me realizing, like these have done it. We can now step forward and do it at the same time, because what they're seeing is not a reflection of who they are, and it's like they can't see it. It's not going to happen for them, but they can see it live and direct with us. So it just gives them that bigger chance and then bigger hopes of being able to make it through. That's my outlook on it, and I hope that this merger will happen, and we'll be able to give them that opportunity.
Yeah, it will, Mary. We just tried to get through the season, as you
know. No, definitely, definitely go ahead. But it's just getting it down, because obviously our women's team has just started to pick up again with all COVID coming in, and once that sells out, we've got all different levels coming in. But I'm sure we'll get a diamond in the rough come through there and give them that great opportunity.
Absolutely
brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I do. As much as so that can obviously happen without a governing body getting involved, but I'll come to you in a second, Audrey, about whether the FA offer any mentoring for female coaches, Black female coaches in particular. But Hope, mentoring, how important is that in trying to bring through more Black female coaches? Because obviously you are a mentor to many, it would seem, to Mary being one of them. Is that something that perhaps Black women need to just sort out amongst themselves rather than looking to an initiative or the FA or anyone else?
Well, I think mentors come in different forms, and don't have to be Black. They don't have to be involved in football. I think it's just about guidance and a sounding board and some direction, really. But I think, and I absolutely agree with Mary, for any aspiring Black coach who is female, if they can grasp the wisdom of people that have perhaps been where they've been and gone on this journey and managed to navigate their way through, and they can see that and talk to somebody that's had those experiences, I think it can only help. I think mentoring is a really good thing. I think any young Black aspiring coach should probably try and seek a mentor if they can. But Mary's been there, seen it, done it. I've been there, seen it, done it. And I think it's just about helping and adding value, and more importantly, giving people the confidence to say, look, you're going to come up against many, many challenges. It's how you address and approach those challenges could be a defining moment for you. If you can work your way and navigate your way through, as I have had to do, as Mary has had to do, then anything is possible. And I always look at myself, listen, if I can do it, then anybody can. really. But I think to somebody that's done there and had those experiences to guide somebody through can only help. Only help.
What do the FA offer in that space, Audrey, in terms of mentoring?
Yeah, I think it's like right through the pathway. There's an offer, and I think at the grassroots level, we've been offering mentoring for the last kind of 3 or 4 years. But one of the things I was just going to touch on there with the mentor, and it is about guiding, isn't it? It's about maybe imparting a bit of wisdom, but just showing people the way. And I know, Hope, you've used the phrase, you get knocked down, you get back up again, and it's supporting people to do that. But I think also we've got to make sure the mentor workforce, whoever's out there, is representative, and seeing it and being it. I think that's a really important thing. We've got to have visibility of who the mentor team are. So we have got mentors that are supporting grassroots coaches, and then similarly, Hope has been a coach developer, but she'll wear a different hat each day. One day she's coach developer, next day she's a mentor, next day she's an educator, the next day she's a social worker. So it's having that broad skill set of just supporting, yeah, exactly, wearing a different hat, but just having somebody there to guide you. It's incredibly important. I think we've probably all experienced different folk informally as well, not necessarily formally. Somebody who can just provide that sounding board, that critical friend. And I know there's been oodles and oodles of research, and I'm not going to quote it because I probably can't remember, but women really excel when they've had the opportunity to work with a mentor. It's kind of been proven, and I think we need more mentors. I think there are more Black female coaches coming through, but we've still got a work to do. But we absolutely want to encourage them to do what Hope's done. She's been very humble. I mean, she spent years and years supporting female coaches, whether they be Black, Asian or white coaches. But we need more people like Hope to step forward, and for Mary to step forward, and Elena to step forward, and Kareen to step forward and support that next generation of coaches that are coming through. Because I think we're doing I think globally, when I say we, I mean the big we, Women in Football, Women's Sports Trust, Women's Sport Collective, Sport England, everybody's trying to really address the imbalance of Black and Asian coaches and female coaches in sport and in football. But if we put our collective effort together and really work hard at providing people with a mentor, I think that can really move things forward in quite a steep way. We'll start to see progress. Yeah. I just wanted to make the point about, you were talking about the men's game, Jess, and in reality, we don't have to, we want our coaching population to represent all societies, and we absolutely want our playing population to do the same, but one shouldn't come before the other. We should just be cracking on with it and making sure that we've got coaches who are from lots of different backgrounds as well as players. We don't want to be in a situation in 5 years' time where we're going, right then, we've got all these players that really are right across the board representing society, but look at our coaching workforce, look at our sporting directors. We want to do that now and not wait till a point where we think, let's consider that part of the workforce. So, yeah.
Okay. Just a reminder to people that the chat function is open. If you'd like to ask a question to one of our esteemed panelists, keep your questions coming in. I'll get to them in just a moment. Mary, I'm wondering, I know you sound very happy at Peckham Men's Town, I have to say. Did you ever consider coaching in the women's game? And I don't know if you've heard, but there's a few jobs going at the moment. Arsenal, Manchester United, Bristol.
I haven't heard of any jobs going out there right now, but like I've said in the past, if opportunities come my way, I will explore them, but they've got to be the right opportunity for me and my family. I do have a young family, so I've got to make sure it's the right thing for me to be doing. Aside them, I grew up, obviously with my children, my young boys playing football, and that was a juggling act in itself, but I was a part of their everyday life. I didn't miss a milestone in their life. And same my daughters, I don't be missing nothing from theirs, and I know the pressures of football, what it does entail. But if I was giving them opportunities, I would definitely be looking at them. And if it works for me and works for my family, then I will take them with both hands and I'll be running with them the same way. But like I said, it just depends what it all entails. And as long as the opportunity is right for me, I would take it. And at the same time, my opportunities at Peckham Town, because I know the growth of how it's going and what they're looking to do for the future, especially within the next 3 years, I'd love to be a part of that, considering I've been there and I've seen how it's been growing. I'd like to see that through. But if a big opportunity comes to me, I'll definitely explore that opportunity.
Yeah, brilliant. I hope WSL clubs are listening there. Mary is open to listening to offers. Let's get to a few questions. This one comes from Lauren, who's said, I really appreciate the honesty from both Hope and Mary. I am a huge, capital letters, Mary Phillip fan and a part of the reformed women's team at Peckham. I know that there are lots of self-run women's teams out there who can't afford a coach to help them develop. How can we make those connections in the community, and how can we get women to be confident enough to lead? Who'd like to take that?
Mary, she's a Mary fan.
She is a big Mary fan.
So what's that question there again?
So how can we make connections in the community? Because there's a lot of women's teams that are self-run, don't necessarily have a budget, so can't afford a coach. So what avenues are out there are possible to enable them to get a coach?
Out there wanna volunteer as coaches. I still am a volunteer coach, but a lot of women do want to do volunteering out there, and I'm sure there are many within your area who maybe not have their coaching badges as of yet, but they can explore them avenues and start doing their coach. But it's nice to have, you've got the team in and around you. You can start your coaching there, and then you can just work your way up to doing your coaching badges and take it from from there. And also, you've got links with your FA, your local FAs that should be able to guide you, because they have a list of coaches that want to get involved with teams. And obviously, as you know, at Peckham Town, we have coaches that you're able to tap into to help along the way. Obviously, I'm also one of them coaches that give guidance in direction, but you've got to be out there and explore it and see what's there available. But there are many out there. It's just picking up that right avenue to be able to tap into them and letting them know that you're actually looking for them.
Yeah, yeah. And just an add from Lauren there that she's hoping to do a level 1 coaching qualification, but costs £200, and that's, you know, it's a lot of money. And again, I think that touches on what you were saying, Hope, about opportunities being restricted by resources sometimes. £200 is a lot of money to people, and if that's what you need to fulfill a coaching qualification, it's just not possible. I got another question here. This one's from Carla. Can the panelists give their view on advocacy? Mentoring is important, but in my experience, advocacy has been more powerful from our colleagues in the game at a higher level. I know Black coaches who are ready, but the opportunities aren't being afforded to them. So yeah, you know, how is it? Sometimes you just need a hype man or a hype woman in your corner, batting for you when you're not in the room, putting you forward for things when they have access to opportunities that you don't. What do you think about that, Hope?
Yeah, I mean, football is a very small community, isn't it, really? Quite often it's not what you know, it's who you know, unfortunately, sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes, you know, how did I get into coaching? Really, I volunteered as Mary did. I went and observed. Sometimes you have to do a little bit for yourself. You know, you have to put yourself in situations that expose you to people that, you know, don't know you, but perhaps need to know you. You know, it's a difficult and challenging industry. And then, you know, if you make that association with somebody and they value you, your name gets put forward. I know that I have done that with coaches. I pass on information that I get to coaches. But sometimes we have to take responsibility to try and push ourselves. We have to put ourselves in positions where it might be uncomfortable. Volunteering, observing, you've got to be visible. And I think we live in a different age now, certainly to when I started, where social media is the thing. You know, there are ways you can form connections and get to know people. LinkedIn, have conversations, you know, and expose yourself. And if you expose yourself and people like you, like what you're doing, they're going to put your name forward. That's how football is, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah.
You know, like Mary, we have a connection from where Mary was a player. Mary's got a team. You know, we're trying to form this connection, and that connection happens because I know Mary and she knows me. That's how the connections work. Yeah.
Very similar.
Allies play a big part, Jess, don't they? Allies and advocates do play a big part. And, you know, there are a number of people out there who want to make a difference for women's football, but women and Black coaches in football. So I think, you know, knowing who they are and networking, and I guess historically that's not been a skill that women, if I'm allowed to stereotype, it's not something we do naturally, but there are people out there that can do that for us. And I think that Mary mentioned it before, you know, if people want to just have a go at coaching through the county FAs, they've got some brilliant connections with grassroots clubs, inner city clubs a little bit further out. They've got really great connections where somebody can go and have a go in a nice, safe environment. We've got lots of what we call female-friendly clubs in women's football. We've done a ton of work on that. So if somebody's wanting to take that first step but are a bit nervous, and they just want somebody to guide them, there's some really super clubs that have these allies in them that really want to promote and support women in coaching. So it is about, taking your own step, but sometimes you just need a little nudge or a little push to just have a go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very similar what you're saying there in terms of the media and the industry that I work in. So I can definitely relate. Let's have a look at the next questions. Eartha's in the house. Hello, Eartha. As individually outlined, all these barriers have been around for decades and still remain as barriers today. Apart from re-identifying those barriers, what have you been able to tangibly embed so far as solutions? So there are barriers that we've been talking about in this conversation. They've been barriers for a number of years. So what tangible solutions have been put in place to counteract these barriers? Audrey, would you like to have an attempt at that one?
Yeah, sure. I think things actually are happening. And so things like I was just talking about there, like placements, really truly providing people with an opportunity rather than it feeling like it's initiative, but that's opportunities. And sometimes, like I said, that's just giving somebody a little gentle nudge to take up that opportunity. I think there's a quite a lot of work going on around how do we specifically develop Black female coaches for the game. I don't know, and I can only speak in my time at the Football Association of, when we've actually had a plan to do that. I think Eartha's right, lots of talk in it. We've now got the Football Leadership Diversity Code, which Hope has helped shape. So there's a little bit of really saying that we're going to go after it and we're not just going to talk about it. We're going to put some things in place so that people do get that opportunity, right down to things like recruitment. How do clubs go about their recruitment? How do they do that? What is that an open and transparent policy that they have? How can we support them? How can we signpost the coaches that we know are in our pipeline to those job opportunities? So there's developing as a coach, and then there's getting an opportunity to coach. I think there's more opportunities now to do that than there's ever been. And I work in women's football, and I think there weren't as many jobs, in women's football before, whereas now there are more opportunities for those that want it as a career. But for those who want to volunteer, there's now oodles and oodles of clubs, particularly in women's football, that are reaching out for good coaches and coaches that just want to let the girls have fun. So I think there's more opportunity than there's been before to really push that.
Okay, that leads nicely into the next question from Bill then, who says many Black ex-male players have spoken out and said nothing will change until the people upstairs, the directors and owners, also become more diverse. Hope and Mary, do you think that could be true? I suppose more Hope actually, because it's about the women's game, but Hope, do you think that might be true in the women's game as well? If the club owners and the people making the decisions aren't diverse, are they likely to recruit diverse coaches?
Absolutely. I think quite often, people employ people like themselves, don't they? It's fact. It's just,
yeah, that's been proven time and time again.
So, yes, I do agree. If directors and the board, they're more diverse, you get diverse thinking. Not everybody thinks the same, therefore you don't get the same result every time. So I think it's really important to have a diverse boardroom. Ultimately the decision makers, the reality is ultimately the decision makers are white. Mm-hmm. Boardrooms majority white. The FA, it's majority white, right? It's majority white. So as I said, you generally employ people like yourself. So those boardrooms, and I know the diversity code looked at that in part. How can clubs be supported to recognise and change boardrooms to make it a bit of a level playing field? Diversity of thinking is so important when you're looking at recruitment. You want people to have different views and different opinions. Otherwise, you always get what you've always got and nothing will change. So I absolutely 100% agree with that.
That is important. And it's also important, isn't it, in terms of retaining. If you're going to try and recruit diverse staff, you also need to be able to keep hold of them. So the culture within the organisation is also very important. And Hope, we've spoken about this before, how when you got to Brighton, you like it, you enjoy it, you have communication with the people at the top, and you like what you're trying to build, and you're given that freedom and you're given support that is an important part of keeping you in your job, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think I feel valued. I think I'm listened to. I can challenge and be challenged. And for me, it's one of the reasons why I came here. You know, the environment felt right. The values are lived. They're not just words on a piece of paper. They're actually lived. And I think certainly at Brighton, we don't always get it right, I'm sure, you know, but I believe the club try to live the values and doing, we are, you know, the demographic of where we are is very white middle class. And the club recognise that, and trying to encourage or work with diverse groups, you know, to help get different mindset, different people into the environment, you know. So hence I go in a city, Mary, you know, where our recruitment's going further into the city that we spoke about before, getting those kids from diverse backgrounds. And I think it's really important, and the club is a true believer of that. And actually they try to live their words. Not they're not just words, they try to actually live them, they try to action them, and that's really important to me.
Culture is important, isn't it, Audrey? For particularly for women coaches, studies show.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Hope providing that example there, that doesn't happen overnight. That's probably been, part of our 3 or 4 year plan to change that diversity and make sure the culture's right. Because that word valued keeps coming up time and time again, around people feeling valued for what they do and living out the values, and it not just being something that you scribble on a piece of paper, or you have a lovely little sign on the wall as you walk in and you don't experience it. So for me, culture and environment's about what you feel, what you hear, what you might see. As you walk into an environment where people are feeling valued, they're empowered, they're allowed to think differently. It's not one way and, my way or the highway type of piece. So I think we talked quite a bit, and Hope was part of a session recently. How do we hold on to the wonderful treasures that exist in women's football? Because women's football is brilliant, and we want to hold on to that people are valued, that that players are respectful, that fans are respectful of each other. There's just so much that we want to hold on to, and that's the same in the clubs. We want the women's team to be as important as the male team, as the academy team, and it's really important that culture really works for women's football. So yeah, but it doesn't happen overnight, Jess. I think it takes time to embed that and embed the culture, and then the tricky thing is, how do you keep it? Because people come and go. How does that culture remain? So if you leave the building, how does that culture remain? But if it's really part of your makeup, then it stays, even if people move on.
Yeah. We are almost already coming to the end of this really fascinating discussion, but I'd just like to finish with a look ahead. So Mary and Hope, we've discussed a lot of the barriers and the issues that exist, but what one thing would you like to change, if you had a magic wand, that would perhaps make coaching more representative and more diverse? Is there one thing you can put your finger on?
For me, you've got to stop trying to put people in boxes and labeling them. Because one thing, not just in football, that this is society as itself. You like to be able to put people in boxes and label them as certain individuals, certain types. Of, this one's in the city, this one's suburban, this one's black, this one's white. Stop trying to do that to people and just take people for who they are. And if society done that as a whole, moving forward would be a lot easier for everyone, because you're not looked at as what you are. It's like who you are and what you're able to give.
Agreed. I love that, Mary. Hope?
Yeah, I agree with Mary. That's a really open question, isn't it? One thing if the one thing I would actually do now that would help going forward is certainly, in terms of, I'm talking about coaches now, in terms of coach education and coach educators, understanding the cultural differences. Because I think there's a challenge there where cultural differences of players, cultural differences of human beings, that sometimes you have this unconscious, quite often conscious bias, because you don't understand people's differences, because most of the coach educators who deliver courses, most of the people that employ people are white. They're not people of colour. So you have a predisposed idea and you judge people based on them being different. So if there was one thing that I would change that I think could help is educating decision makers about cultural differences that would allow more opportunities for people of colour.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. It makes sense in my head.
No, it does. I hear that. I hear that.
You know, we're as a black person, your behaviours are different to white people. Therefore, you are seen as sometimes, and players, you know, I've spoken to players that have, you know, trouble, not engaged, not interested. Hang on a minute. Hang on, they might just be, you know, and certainly in a club environment, we have all different cultures. And I have to get my head around that. You know, she's from Holland, she's from Korea, she's very different. I have to appreciate that. And I think coach education needs to learn something when educating coaches who are then going to be the selectors of talent, or, you know, go on to get positions in club. It's yeah, that's one thing I would definitely look at.
Yeah.
Will have a big impact, personally. That's what I think.
That would be a very important change. Wise words there, Hope. We've come to the end of time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been very insightful. It's been interesting. It's been fascinating. Massive thanks to Hope, to Audrey, and to Mary for joining us on this B is for Black Women in Football collaboration. Thank you so much. I'm just going to hand back to Laura now.
And thanks, Jess, for allowing us to be part of your series, which is really, really important to us as women in football. I've certainly learned a lot today, and the part about education is clearly a big part of this. So thank you very much to everybody. Do let us know your thoughts on today, on Twitter, on email, events@womeninfootball.co.uk. We're holding a workshop actually with Hayley Bennett later this month. Let's talk about race. It's on Thursday, the 27th of May, and details of how to book are on the events section of the Women in Football website. The next in the B is for Black series with Jess is on the 8th of June at 3 o'clock, discussing Black female players at the top of their game. Again, more details on our website. There will be plenty more events over the next few weeks and months, so do keep an eye on the website, do check our social media channels, do feedback to us, we do listen to our members, and thank you all again for joining us, and see you next time.